This meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 13 of the House of Commons Special Committee on Afghanistan, created pursuant to order of the House of December 8th, 2021. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House order of November 25th, 2021. I would like to remind all those present in the room to please follow the recommendations from public health authorities as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on October 19, 2021 to remain healthy and safe. Should any technical challenges arise, please advise me as we may need to suspend for a few minutes to ensure all members are able to participate fully. Witnesses should be aware that translation is available through the globe icon at the bottom of their screen. Could you please take a moment to select the language of your choice, either the floor, English, or French? So as when members ask the questions, the time is not taken just to fix that issue. I hope that is good with them, and I would like to welcome our witnesses here with us for this panel, and thank you all for coming on a short notice. I would see that there are 4 independent witnesses. They will have 5 minutes each, and please do respect the time because we are very short time-wise because it's Friday, and many of the members have expressed that they have constituency work. It's line up out of their doors, so we want to make sure that we are able to get the maximum output out of this. So first, 5 minutes each to each of the witnesses, and then we'll go with 1 round of 6 minutes each. And please, members, you also respect the time as well. With us as individuals, we have former interpreters, Canadian Armed Forces, Masood Martin Hotek, Mohammed Jarif Mayer. Here supporting Mr. Hotek and Mr. Mayer is Tara Shachak. Thank you for coming. Also with us today is partner at Landings LLP, Warda Sajadi Megan, and from the Rainbow Railroad, Executive Director, Dr. Kim Hali Powell. So you have 5 minutes each, and let me start with the former interpreter, Masood Martin Hotek. You have 5 minutes to go, please. Mr. Hotek, are you there? Can everyone hear me though? Okay, then we're waiting for Mr. Okay, let me move on then. If he's not responding, we can go to Mr. Mohammed Jarif Mayer. Please go ahead for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon to all of you. So everybody is aware of situation and what's going on right now in Afghanistan. And there's a lot of people left behind right now, and they are seeking safe way to get out of there. And day by day, restriction is tightening by Taliban, and life is getting very tough for those people, especially who was working with the coalition forces and for NGOs. So I don't know, the government, hopefully the government will hear this, and good, especially the government is aware of all the situation right now, what's happening, because they know better than everybody else. So I'm in contact with a lot of people. They're calling me and sending me emails, their documents and stuff. They want to just get out of there, but Nobody's hearing here right now. I don't know. The Canadian government did this for just sorry to say this, but I would say this like it was just for elections or what? They brought 12,000 people they took out like 12,000 people from Afghanistan. It was just for elections or what? What about the rest of the people who are just waiting in more like for a year, at least for a year now, because the government just collapsed on 16th of August. There's a lot of entrepreneurs, their families, their kids are waiting in a list, and there's no hope left for them. They want just a way, and they want somebody to hear them.
Done, Mr. Meyer? Meyer, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. And we'll move to Miss Megan. Please go ahead for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable committee members for the invitation to speak with you today on Afghanistan. I am an immigration and refugee law partner at Landings LLP. It's a law firm in Toronto. Last July, before the fall of Kabul, I began receiving desperate messages about individuals needing urgent assistance. To respond to this demand, Landings partnered with a Canadian national firm on a pro bono basis, and we filed approximately for 100 individuals under the Special Immigration Program. In August, I began working with a judicial organization to troubleshoot the processing of resettlement for female judges and their family members. I now belong to a task force which meets regularly to discern next steps for these individuals as the situation evolves. Officials are working extremely hard. There's also no lack of political will in terms of the Canadians and what they want to see happen in Afghanistan. But 9 months later, issues continue to linger. Afghanistan poses some structural challenges. All refugee situations do, but some solutions are outside of our control and others are in our control. I make 4 recommendations to you today, centered on factors that are within our control. Number 1, we need a standing interdepartmental cabinet committee which reports to Parliament and which harnesses both institutional memory of what we do in refugee situations and a proactive emergency framework. And we have to be prepared before the moment requires it. This committee would be crucial in terms of bringing together all the key decision makers at a moment's notice. Mr. Chair, we know that situations in Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, and Ukraine are occurring and that refugee situations are not going to disappear. So this standing committee will allow us to respond in a more timely fashion. Number 2 is the recommendation of exploring more aggressively flexible non-refugee streams to get individuals outside of Afghanistan where refugee options are not feasible. This would include things like study permits, work permits, authorization for emergency travel. Number 3, and I know the committee has heard this before, is the widespread prima facie refugee designations for at-risk Afghans. It is crucial that in valuable time, we're not making redundant exercises, but we're having the officers focus on inadmissibility and security. Those are key considerations. We already know that at-risk Afghans are refugees. We don't need a partner organization which has different mandates to tell us that. And the fall of Kabul really showed us why we cannot rely primarily on partner organizations for this designation. We know that the government has recently permitted the waiver of UNHCR designation for a number of select Afghans to the private resettlement stream, and we need to do this in a more widespread manner. And finally, we need a more reasoned approach to security, both with respect to biometrics and our concerns regarding criminal code terrorism provisions. That doesn't presuppose a zero level of risk. No government action is zero risk. We have to manage the risk. Mr. Chair, I look forward to your questions and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Megan, and very well under time. Now I will go to Mr. Powell for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable committee members for the invitation to speak. My name is Kamali Powell, and I'm the Executive Director of Rainbow Railroad, an international organization based in Canada and the United States that supports LGBTQI plus people facing persecution based on their sexual orientation, gender identity expression, and sex characteristics. I'm pleased to be invited to speak today. Given the urgent nature of our work in crisis in Afghanistan as well as other parts of the world, and this being the last of the committee meetings, I personally went to Ottawa to deliver my remarks, only to have it be canceled. And so I really appreciate having this opportunity because this really is a life and death situation. I also like to concur with my colleague, Ms. Mahan, on her 4 recommendations. Rainbow Railroad provides direct support to individuals in need and partners with organizations, human rights defenders worldwide. We facilitate emergency evacuations for individuals facing persecution and violence. To date, we have helped nearly 1,200 people resettle in countries all around the world. But that is not enough to identify the need. This year alone, we anticipate 10,000 requests for help, and many of them in Afghanistan. Part of what causes displacement for our communities is that in 70 countries around the world, LGBTQI plus persons are criminalized by laws that criminalize same-sex intimacy. And Afghanistan is one of those countries. In August 13th, the government announced, and I quote, a special program to focus on particularly vulnerable groups that are already welcome to Canada through existing resettlement streams, including women leaders, human rights defenders, journalists, persecuted religious minorities, and LGBTQI individuals. After that statement, requests for help from LGBTQI plus Afghans spiked dramatically. And understanding that statement to mean that Canada would evacuate LGBTQI plus persons, over 4,500 Afghans have reached out to us for urgent assistance. Because we are a leader in evacuating this population and have worked with the Canadian government before, many assumed we'd be working with the government to refer individuals for resettlement. That has not happened despite our demonstrated expertise and international presence. We work with Outright Action International and Human Rights Watch, 2 partners of the Canadian government, to detail a report describing the persecution that this community faces, including beatings, surveillance, having their identity documents burned, having their families threatened and imprisoned over their identities. I firsthand went to the region twice and witnessed the trauma faced by those who managed to flee. We were among the first NGOs to facilitate safe passage out of Afghanistan in a partnership that brought LGBTQI plus Afghans to the United Kingdom. We also facilitated the creation of emergency safe houses in neighboring countries. Countries, that should be noted, also criminalize same-sex intimacy. I'll put my remarks in short. Too many Afghans remain at risk and need resettlement. LGBTQI Afghans need a direct, safe way out. Canada must provide it. Globally, we've seen a rise in geopolitical crises, and the situation in Ukraine demonstrates that when needed, Canada has the tools available to help people at risk. A similar program in Ukraine could directly benefit Afghans right now. We have actually a direct referral partnership with the United States that will result in 200 LGBTQI plus Afghans resettling in Canada. As a Canadian organization, we believe there's an opportunity to partner directly with the Canadian government to provide a pathway to safety for these individuals. It is in that spirit, I want to conclude with 2 crucial policies that would make an immediate difference in the lives of thousands of LGBTQI plus Afghans. First, I encourage the committee to urge the Minister of Immigration to use their authority under Section 25 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act to create a public policy to urgently resettle at least 300 pre-identified LGBTQI Afghans as government-assisted refugees. There are at least 300 ready-to-travel Afghans in our queue who are ready and need to help. Second, I asked the committee to urge the government of Canada to make Rainbow Railroad a direct referring partner to allow us to pursue targeted responses for the most vulnerable cases of LGBTQI plus persons out of Afghanistan, Ukraine, and beyond for resettlement. This was recently asked of the minister in this committee, and that's what I'm calling for today. Partner with civil society organizations that have expertise to help Afghans resettle in Canada. Right now, there are too many people waiting, and with this committee's support, we can bring more people to Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Powell. Right on the clock. So now we will have one round of questions, and we will start with Mr. Hallen for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all the witnesses for your patience in having to wait another week or waiting a few days to come here. My first question is for Mr. Meyer. Mr. Meyer, you must have been dealing with a lot of interpreters and their family members even before Kabul fell. Can you give us some information as far as your experience with the people you're dealing with? How has the communication been with IRCC before Kabul fell?
So as regarding to your question, I'm still in touch with the people, and they are sending me emails. And before the Kabul fall, like before 15th of August, the IRCC was doing they was working pretty good. They was checking documents and stuff. I was in touch, so I was working with the group, with the organization called Aman Lara. So I was working very closely. There was a lot of people coming, and we was trying to give them safe passage from Kandahar, Helmand, from other provinces to Kabul.
What's different now after Kabul fell? Do you see a difference in communication?
There's a big difference right now. Everybody's complaining right now, and they are not even looking like they're saying, okay, we are stuck now, and we are not receiving any response from IRCC. So there should be somebody hearing this, and they have to do something for the people, especially it's not about the entrepreneurs or it's their families, their kids, especially women. That they don't have rights right now. Everybody can see that. You guys can see the news, and everybody knows that the women are just the circle is getting tighter for women. Every day there's a new issue for women.
I agree with you. I think we've heard a lot of testimony, and people that I've been talking to, they either are left on auto reply, or there's been no response from IRCC whatsoever. Have you or anyone that you know been in touch with IRCC to bring your cases forward? If you have, was there any, what was communicated?
So people are sending emails and sending their documents. So they have a specific Google form to fill, and after that you will receive an email confirmation email. So we got your email. We will reply you soon. That's it. But they are not replying. They are not receiving any emails back. They are still on hold. People are still on hold.
Definitely. Just changing gears here, Mr. Powell. Your organization recently released a statement about those 300 LGBTQ Afghans that you spoke about, and your organization is quoted as saying, "Ready for imminent travel and resettlement in a safer country, but they're stuck and waiting for a way out." End quote. And one of your recommendations that you just said about resettling them should come under the government-assisted refugees program. To the best of your knowledge, have any of those applications or any previously to this situation, have anyone of those been resettled through the government-assisted program or any other special immigration measures?
No, the individuals that we're referring to are still stuck in neighboring countries. They've managed to make it outside of Afghanistan, but we're imploring the government to allow us to refer them for resettlement.
What do you see some of the roadblocks are?
It's not clear to us where the commitment to the vulnerable population stream begins and ends. That's what we've been asking for clarity for, and when the cap of that population ends. And in particular, as a population mentioned specifically, I believe that there should be a commitment to track and identify how many of those persons will be able to resettle. Now, of course, that's difficult because of privacy issues, which is why referral is an important part of our ask.
Mr. Helen, you have about 1 minute left.
Concede my time to Mr. Ruff.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And first off, my thanks to all the witnesses, especially the former interpreters, having spent time in 2 tours in Afghanistan. I couldn't have done my job, and none of the Canadian Armed Forces without it. Chair, I got a motion to move, but I do suggest we push off any discussion on it till after the first round, if you'll commit to that. But the motion's now been sent by the clerk to everybody, but I'll read it quickly into the record. That the Privy Council Office, Global Affairs Canada, and the Canadian Armed Forces, and any other government department provide the Special Committee on Afghanistan the already completed or draft after-action review reports with respects to the evacuation of Kabul in August of 2021 from the respective departments to the Afghanistan Committee for inclusion in the report due back to the House by the 8th of June 2022. Thanks, Chair. Will you agree to that?
Yes, I do agree, Mr. Raff, and we'll defer the discussion to the end. So we will proceed to now the Honorable Member El-Khoury for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to wish our witnesses a good welcome. We appreciate your presence with us today. My first question goes to Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell, in your report, you often mention reinforcing the partnership between Rainbow and the government as it plays its role in Afghanistan and elsewhere. Could you describe the conditions for this partnership and what you have in mind, particularly, so you can help us to improve it?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I'd love to respond to you in French, but then I think my address would be too long. So I'll speak in English. There's 2 specific ways we work with the government. First, there's a Rainbow Refugee Assistance Partnership, which the government has mentioned often, which allows community partners across the country to identify people for private sponsorship into the country. It's a good model. It's a model for the world. And I sat actually with the minister in a meeting yesterday in New York, describing the benefits of that program as well. And to my point that I'm about to address, we've worked with the government on public policies in the past to identify people at risk in various circumstances and allow them to use minister authority to get them into the country. And that is why we're specifically mentioning the use of Section 25. There's ample precedent for this. And this is a real easy win for the government to help a vulnerable population that they've identified of concern. Okay.
Pouvez-vous nous en dire un peu plus sur la...
Could you tell us more about the conditions of members of the LGBTQ community during the period from 2000 to 2001 to 2021? And the fate that awaits them since the 2021 withdrawal? In what situation do those people find themselves now?
Yeah, I'll even go a step further. So from 96 to 2001, when the Taliban had control, we saw already that under Sharia law, LGBTQI+ persons were often facing severe attacks from the Taliban. During the period of the conflict, there was an easing of those direct persecution acts, and there was like a small civil society that was able to function. Again, in the report that we participated in, that you could find with Outright Action International and Human Rights Watch, many people reported an easing and an ability to live quietly, still in a country that criminalizes same-sex intimacy, but it was not actively targeting them. Immediately after the takeover from the Taliban, there was a sharp shift, and the sense of pervasive lawlessness that has presided over in Afghanistan has meant that individuals were subject to raids, and if you were not dressed in traditional Afghan wear, you were often targeted further. Anyone that was perceived to be a member of the community were subjects to beatings. And usually what would happen is that they'd be targeted for beatings and then told that they would return to harm them further. And that's when most people fled. And people were being, turned over by family members, community members, former sexual partners. So it was a real pervasive sense of violence towards the community.
Madame Megan, diriez-vous que
Ms. Megan, would you say that the humanitarian avenue set up in 2021 to help vulnerable people has attained its objectives? Should there have been an extension of this measure in spite of the very thin margin of maneuver available to the forces present?
I would suggest that there certainly has been room for streamlining. Officials have worked very hard, and a number of people have arrived, of course, and we see those numbers. But absolutely, we should continue those programs. I understand currently that the 2,000 or so spots left in the special immigration measures are spoken for, and that program should continue because individuals who have a connection to Canada are still not processed, and we can continue these programs to allow for them to also come through. And in terms of whether the programs have achieved their purpose, I think it's a continuing purpose. And as long as we have individuals who still require safety and fit within the mandate of the programs we've set out, we should continue the programs.
Madame Megan, vous savez que les femmes ont...
Ms. Megan, you know that women in Afghanistan live under very terrible conditions. Can you tell us more about the fate of women there from the period from 2001 to 2021? And what can be done to help the women and young girls who are stuck there? And for someone like you, a legal consultant, how do you find the role that Canada played to help the Afghans compared to other peoples of the world?
Very briefly, please, time is almost up.
We can create a special program, much like the one Mr. Powell is mentioning under 25.2, to allow at-risk women and children to come through on special measures if the mandate under the humanitarian program hasn't been able to do that because of the different obstacles that have been outlined in front of this committee. We can also prioritize using biometrics facilities for this demographic where they've been offered to us by the allies.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Khoury. Now we'll go to Mr. Bruno Dissep for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all the witnesses for their presence here for this important study. You come from different horizons that your expertise will help us draft this report as we come up with recommendations. So thank you very much. Ms. Megan, you are an immigration lawyer. We increasingly realize since the Afghan, Ukrainian, Syrian crisis, or even other crises like the one in Haiti, natural disasters, we realize that the reaction of the immigration department is always very slow. Some people wonder if we shouldn't set up an emergency setup to handle crisis that could come up tomorrow morning or in 2 years. Do you agree that the Immigration Department come up with this special mechanism to more rapidly address any crisis that could occur in the future?
Thank you for your question. Absolutely. We should have a standing body that has the authority from the central government to be able to respond very rapidly. One of the challenges we found in this crisis and a number of the other ones that you've mentioned is IRCC also has to rely on its partners within global affairs and within public safety. So it's really an interdepartmental effort, which is why I proposed the standing cabinet committee so that every minister that is needed to make a very quick political decision is at the table. And this committee should also have working groups with experts, regional experts, immigration experts, national security experts that can advise on a moment's notice on any tricky issue. And so there isn't that coordination issue that we've seen in the past. This committee should also be given earmarked resources so that it's not straining the already very difficult demands of IRCC officers and IRCC staff currently. So it should have separate staff and it should have separate resources that are earmarked.
Une espèce de force de réserve.
Some kind of reserve force. I know that the CBSC officers can do biometrics. Maybe they could also be used to help IRCC officials in their work. So that's what you're proposing, some kind of a reserve force for the immigration services.
What I'm proposing is a body that exists within Canada that has all of the key decision makers who are needed to put forward any decision on a refugee crisis. With respect to the biometrics piece, I think it will depend on which country we're looking at. With Afghanistan specifically, you're right that there are veterans, for example, or CSIS or CBSA. There are other parties that have offered biometrics capabilities that we can leverage, but we also want to explore allies within Afghanistan, our foreign allies, to see if we can leverage their biometric capabilities as well. And that should be a standing approach that is embedded within this body that I'm referring to.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Maya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maya. A while ago, you seemed to be very hurt, and it's understandable given the current context. The Canadian government told the interpreters that they could quickly have their family members come to Canada. In light of what has been done concretely, do you have the impression that you were lied to when you look at the outcome?
Mr. Meyer.
I didn't got the question. It's not clear to me. Can you repeat that question, please?
Mr. Brunasep, again, I'll stop the watch. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Canadian government told the interpreters that they could bring over their family members quickly. Considering what has been done concretely, looking at the results, do you have the impression that you were lied to somehow?
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Meyer.
So regarding, thanks for your question, first of all. Regarding to your question, the Canadian government did something for the people. As I said before, like in when I was start talking, so I don't know, it was a political thing or what. They just brought 12,000. They got the numbers like better. They know better than me. They got the numbers. It's 12,500 people. It's like they are from Afghanistan, right? New refugees. But about there should be like, I think, as Prime Minister said, we will be looking forward for the people who will be coming from Afghanistan to Canada. It should be almost 40,000. So there's a lot of people remaining right now. And as regarding to me, I didn't like I wasn't able to get to the airport on the chaos. So I stayed over there. I was hiding from Taliban for at least 40 days. And after that, there was an organization called Aman Lara who called me, and I went to Islamabad. From there, I came to Canada. The process was very long, and right now there's a lot of families. Maybe I don't know the numbers, but there's a lot of people still on a hold and still waiting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno. Time is up. Sorry.
Merci, monsieur.
And Mr. Hotek, could you please follow the instructions on your screen and accept it? And now we'll go to Madam Kwan for 6 minutes. Please go ahead, Madam Kwan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for their presentations. I wasn't able to partake in the presentations because I had to do a speech in the House, so I missed the presentations. But I think I heard as I was coming in that Ms. Megan, is it Megan?
Meehan.
Meehan,
Yes.
commenting that there should be a special sort of operation within government to continue the operation of bringing Afghans to safety. So to that end, I wonder if you can comment on this. Do you think that the government should request the Department of National Defense to lead a mission to help bring more Afghans to safety and to work in collaboration with allied countries to address the biometrics issues and other issues in the effort to bring more Afghans to safety?
I think it is a good idea to have the special body. It would probably be best led by immigration because the national security piece is really one piece of it, and the issues we're having with biometrics is one piece of it. So I think it should be an interdepartmental effort led by IRCC. And with respect to the biometric piece, we have to make a choice. We either do our own biometrics, in which case we're extracting people from Afghanistan and doing biometrics on a military base, for example, or on a third location, and then dealing with the law as it stands in terms of inadmissible persons, or we are leveraging our allies, as you suggest, in terms of doing the biometrics. And DND certainly has a role in that, but I would propose that it would be IRCC who would take the lead on such a special body.
So that would be internal while they're inside government. At our previous committee meetings, we actually had officials come forward. And previously, for example, with the Syrian Refugee Initiative, where we did have biometrics issues in northern Iraq, as an example. And the IRCC department actually had to work collaboratively with the armed forces to bring a operation there, to bring people here. This is what I'm talking about. But under this circumstance, only GAC can make a request to the National Defense to do this work. IRCC can't even make that request of the National Defense to work in collaboration with them. So hence my question, do you think that GAC should make this request to the Department of National Defense, to the armed forces, to the Canadian military, to work with allied countries to help bring Afghans to safety, whether it's on biometrics or other needs?
We would very much welcome that, yes.
In the instance where biometrics could not be obtained for obvious reasons, because the government is saying that people have to go to the Taliban office and get a passport. You can imagine what that's going to be like. People are absolutely going to put a bullseye on them, and they will not be able to get those passports. And without those passports, they cannot get into a third country, and without getting to a third country, they cannot get to safety. So from that perspective, do you think that if we've exhausted all these options, given that people's lives hang in the balance, should the government then waive the biometrics and other documentations requirement until they're safely here in Canada, and then once they're safe on Canadian soil, we can then go through the process and do all that work?
Yes, I think that's something that we've done in other contexts. We've done that in the context of Kosovo, for example, where we've done onshore processing. And absolutely, we should look at that if biometrics in Afghanistan is just not working. And to the extent that we have inadmissible individuals that are found on Canadian soil, we have the provisions in our immigration regime to deal with that. So we shouldn't look at that as a failure of the system. It's actually the system working. And we have mechanisms in the immigration regime to take care of inadmissible persons when they're found within the biometrics process on shore.
Dr. Powell, right now the referral agencies that the government is accepting for Afghans are very limited. So why do you think that is important for the minister to expand the referral organizations for resettlement to other qualified and established civil society organizations who are connected to vulnerable refugees, such as members from the LGBTQ2+ communities?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I said in my remarks, the government clearly identified vulnerable populations, and for the LGBTQI+ community, there are specific vulnerabilities and barriers to adequately identifying those persons. And so there was a clear expectation set on August 13th when those vulnerable populations were announced. And we have a rare ability having demonstrative expertise in evacuating persons to provide assistance to fulfill the government's promise to resettle those persons. And a referring partnership is the tool to allow us to do that.
You're also calling on the government to immediately resettle 300 at-risk LGBTQ2+ Afghan refugees. Should the government do this as a special immigration measure in addition to the 40,000 Afghan refugees that they have already announced as their measure? The reason why I suggest this or ask this is that those numbers are actually getting filled up really fast now, and there aren't that many spots left. And so I fear that people would be left behind.
This is a specific ask in addition to the 40,000 committed, because at this stage we do not know if they're going to meet that target. So yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Kwan. The time is up, and this concludes our panel today. And I want to thank the witnesses for being here on a short notice. And I would ask them they can log off because we have a committee business to discuss. Thank you again. Okay. So, Mr. Raff, you have your motion right now on the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Everybody should have received it in both official languages. The clerk did clarify even before today's meeting that we're still waiting on the majority of these reports. We've already asked witnesses to provide during previous testimony. I think it's pretty straightforward, but considering the government's already conducted these reviews, it'd be, I think, make the analyst's job a lot easier, especially on the part one of our report back if we got that information. So I think the rest speaks for itself.
Okay, Madam Damov and Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Chair. I wish we had taken more time, quite honestly, to have heard from our witnesses rather than this. I think we just spent time doing committee drafting. Our analysts are about to start writing a report, and we've given the analyst instructions. I won't get into what those instructions were because that was all done in camera, obviously, but I think we need to be cognizant of time. We need to be cognizant of this being a House motion on when we report back to the House. And I think it's inappropriate to be bringing a motion like this forward now that could potentially delay the analyst's work, which is, we have probably two or three, or however many we have, best analysts in Parliament in this committee doing incredible work trying to siphon through a huge amount of information. So I'm not quite sure why the honourable member, for whom I have a great deal of respect for, feels that we need to pass this motion at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Dama. Now we'll go to Mr. Baker, then Mr. Bruner Decept. You have lowered your hand. Then we go to Mr. Al-Khoury. Mr. Baker.
Thanks very much, Chair. So I'm trying to process a little bit and understand better why Mr. Ruff has brought this particular motion forward. Maybe I would ask him if he can kind of explain a little bit to me, because I don't like what he means. Maybe this is a technical word, or maybe it's just something I haven't encountered. But is what, as I read the motion, he says that we provide the Special Committee of Afghanistan the already completed or draft after action review reports with the respect of the evacuation of Kabul in August 2021. And I guess what I'm wondering is what is an after action review report? Like, what is the scope of that? What sorts of information does that include typically? I'm just not clear about what that is. So that's my first question. I guess I need clarification on that before I could proceed on that. I know that so that's my first point, is a little bit clarification around what the motion is actually asking for. The second part, do you mind, Chair, if I keep going? Do you want me to keep going, Chair?
Keep going. You have the floor.
Okay. And then I guess, so that's the first point, is if Mr. Ruff could clarify that, I would appreciate it. The second thing is that I guess I would, and this is a question to Mr. Ruff as well, but I'm trying to understand what I was trying to envisage what an after action review report is, and then how it would fit into our study. And so obviously I can't go into the discussion that we had earlier, that's in confidence in camera, but I guess I would ask for sort of his sort of rationale for asking for this and how it fits in with what we're trying to accomplish in the committee. Like I kind of thought our focus in this committee was about trying to understand how we move forward. And it sounds a little bit like this is about kind of looking back at what happened, I guess, before August 2021. So I guess I'm not clear on how it's relevant. So the first question was, what's the scope of this? I'm not clear on that. And then the second one is, how does it help us achieve our goal as a committee? So that would be question 2. Perhaps I'm asking Mr. Ruff if he could clarify that. I'll keep going, Chair, and then I'll let you decide, Chair, the order of sort of speaking and stuff. But those are my questions to Mr. Ruff. And then I guess I want to kind of echo a little bit of what Pam said, Ms. DeMoff said during her intervention a moment ago. Like in her intervention, Ms. DeMoff spoke to the fact that the timing of when this is being brought forward. So if, assuming we can get our heads around what it is that we mean by these after action reports, and secondly, how it's relevant. I mean, I think I agree that like bringing it forward with Ms. DeMoff, bringing it forward now, when we have very limited meetings left, I think it's 2, and we have a deadline to meet, then that, I guess I'm trying to figure out how, if these are things that are important to the writing of a report, then why wasn't this brought forward a little sooner? Because it then would allow the committee to consider it, hear from witnesses on it, cross-reference information and whatever these reports would have with what we're hearing from witness testimony, ensure that the analysts can incorporate it properly. So it doesn't, like, I don't know how it constructively helps us advance the report if it's being requested at this particular juncture in time, in terms of our process in getting this report done by the deadline that needs to be met by this committee for writing the report. So I guess those are 3 areas, 3 questions I guess I have, and I'm hopeful Mr. Ruff could help answer those for me.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We have a speaking list. Mr. Al-Khoury, then Madam Kwan, and then Mr. Tony Van Wynen. So Mr. Al-Khoury, go ahead, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we have only 19 days for the Parliament to do work is, and the most important thing to finish the report, and to finish a report for a very, very important humanitarian country suffered. So I believe if we're gonna go with the motion and start to delay and eating time, it might jeopardize our effort to finish the report in proper time. In reality, we don't want to put a horse in this race. Our horse now should go in order to complete the report. And I hope I wouldn't be able, or I wouldn't be obliged to continue and to speak and to take my proper time to show the difference between having those documents and describing in details the situation in Afghanistan, how important for this community to finish the report within a proper time. And I would like to hear also from our colleague, Mr. Ruff, what can he say about this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Alcoy. We'll go to Madam Kwan and then Mr. Tony Van Wijnen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll just be very quick. With respect to the request for these reports, it should be noted that officials presented at the committee to say that these reports have been completed, so they're available, so then all they have to do is really just make them available to the committee. As well, I would point out that the committee members have made a number of undertakings to the officials in various departments, and many of those documents have not yet been presented to us, even though they are also ready. So the reality is that officials can, in fact, table all of those undertakings along with this report for us to receive this. If they do that as soon as possible, we would then be able to utilize this work towards the completion of the report. And I would add, without receiving that information, the truth is that they are already hampering the analysts in doing their work, because many of that undertaking was made prior to today, and we still have not received them.
Thank you very much, Madam Kwan. We'll go to Mr. Tony Van Wijnen. Go ahead, please. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's refreshing for me to sit in on a committee like this. And perhaps maybe the only benefit I might be able to add is that there's a fresh set of eyes on the discussion and the dialogue. With respect to the motion in itself, the fact that the date of June the 8th is part of the motion, and the very, very broad-reaching description of the information that they're looking at. Here it says they want information from the Privy Council, Global Affairs, the Canadian Armed Forces, and any other government department. Now, how many departments do we have that would be engaged in this in the longer term, and specifically which other departments? I think this is such a far-reaching description that it would be very difficult to identify which departments would be engaged in the dialogue, and even by the 8th of June, would we even know how many of these other groups that we should be engaging? And we ran into similar situations when we were in HESA, and I do want to acknowledge that Mr. Ruff participates well, as did Mr. Chong in the HUMA committee. But the experience that we had in the HESA committee in the earlier parliament is that we should be very defined in terms of the information that we're seeking. A broad-reaching motion like this serves no one, and it's virtually impossible to be able to meet the date line that's being established here. So while I appreciate the members' interest in making sure that we have a thorough analysis of the issue, that we go forward and make meaningful recommendations, my concern is that we're trying to boil the ocean here. We're looking for way too much information, and it sounds to me from the discussions that I've heard earlier is that this committee has been quite thorough. And when I hear some of the discussions earlier, people seem to be quite satisfied generally with the information that was available as they were going through the draft reports. So why would we want to expand this and to a great extent, perhaps even dilute the effectiveness of this report when we're looking for some solutions that are actionable by the government, when we're looking for some good, clean recommendations from this committee that can be initiated and can be implemented by the government. It's to me, it's somewhat self-defeating. It's trying to get too much information into a report that seems to be on the verge of being prepared, that seems to be on the verge of being ready, and seems to be on the verge of going forward. So for me, the motion itself, if at all going forward, should be very much refined and should be amended to be more specific, and so that staff and the departments that have the information that we're seeking have the ability to seek out that information and make it available. So those are my thoughts. And again, as I say, it's only with the benefit of having some fresh eyes, as Mr. Chong and Mr. Ruff have contributed to the HUMA committee as well. So those are my thoughts for the time being.
Thank you, Mr. Baker, and then Mr. Bruno-Decep. Mr. Baker, go ahead. The floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had the opportunity to speak already, so I will allow Alexis to speak, and then I will speak after him. I would like to speak, but I would like Alexis to speak first.
For your understanding and cooperation, Mr. Bruno-Decep, please go ahead.
It's very kind of my friend, Ivan. I appreciate that. And honestly, dear friends, I know that we have the room till 4:30 p.m. We could go on talking about the merits or not of this motion. Everybody has their mind made up. From what I've heard over the past 15 minutes, it's the same argument that comes back every time. So, Mr. Chair, I humbly think we should vote right away and stop repeating the same arguments that have to do with the motion that has been tabled before us today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno-Decep, for your suggestion. But as a chair, I have to be equitable and very fair. If the hands are up, I can't stop people from making the presentation unless I get a clear direction from the clerk that there is a hard stop for the committee. So I'm sorry, but I take your suggestion very carefully. Now, Madam Damoff, please go ahead. The floor is yours. And I'll come back to Mr. Baker after Mr. Tony Van Wynen again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to, given the the timing and the difficulties that we've had around, presenting this report back to Parliament, which I think is something that we all want to do. And I know that I've had conversations with some of the members here about the importance of being forward-looking on what we present to Parliament. So I think this particular information that Mr. Ruff has asked for is important, but I don't think it should be something that we're holding back the report. So I would suggest an amendment, Chair, that the motion end at, from their respective departments to the Afghan committee, period, and remove the words "for inclusion in the report back to the House by June 8th, 2022. And the reason I do that is simply so that we won't hold up the report, that we will be able to still table a report if those documents are not available. And I don't want to presume that they're not, but I think that way we're honoring the spirit of Mr. Ruff's motion, while at the same time being respectful of the tight timelines that we do have now. And I think I'm just trying to incorporate what other speakers have said, while at the same time honoring what Mr. Ruff is trying to do. So I would suggest that the motion be amended to end after the word committee and then removing for inclusion in the report due back in the House by June 8th, 2022, Chair. You're on mute, Chair. Can't hear you, Chair.
Hello, now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I will go to Mr. Raff. Mr. Raff, would you accept the amendment from Madam Demo?
Chair, respectively, I can't because the committee ceases to exist, as I just clarified with the clerk, on the 8th of June. So there's no use in sending it to a non-existent body. We need this for inclusion in the report. Thank you.
So even though you don't accept it, but Madam Damov has an amendment to the motion, and now I will go to...
Point of order, Chair. Can you just clarify that order, that amendment is in order, considering it would basically, as I just pointed out, the committee doesn't exist after the 8th of June.
Committee ceases to exist after the 8th. So you don't need to accept this, but the motion is on the floor, and amendment is on the floor. So we will be able to talk about the amendment on this one. So let me speak to the amendment now, please. Mr. Tony Van Byen, go ahead. If you want to speak to the what it's called, amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, this was a legacy hand, but since I'm in the lineup and I don't see a lot of people lined up, I'm curious in terms of could we circulate the and I guess for my benefit the orders that put the restrictions on the June 8th date. I don't have that information in front of me, and I just wanted to clarify the statement that was being made that the report or that the committee no longer exists after June the 8th. And I'm just wondering if that was the case, would it be possible for that information to come forward through another avenue? Are there other committees that are engaged in these discussions? Are there other committees that could be using this information to help inform the government? If I could just get some clarification on that, Mr. Chair, particularly just to clarify the date, and if there are any other options that would be available for this information to come forward, for this information to be considered, and what committees would they be? If somebody could just clarify that for me, I would appreciate it.
As far as this committee, I earlier said committee ceases to exist after the 8th or whenever it reports, and I will like to have some time here. I'm going to suspend for a few minutes, and then I'm going to come back to you on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the clarification of all the members, this committee ceases to, exist after 8th. 8th is the last day, and if we present the report on 6th, then 6th is the last day that this committee, will go, and then we are done. So, other thing I checked is, motion by Madam Demoff is in order. So we can have discussion and then vote. But I mean, I know it's Friday. I wish you among the members can somehow come up with consensus, so I can let you guys go. Otherwise, I'm here sitting in the chair. I'm going to carry on my duty as a chair, and I have to continue to acknowledge members as long as we don't have a hard stop from the clerk. So the floor is with Mr. Tony Van Bynen. Please go ahead with your intervention on the.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have the answer to the first part of my question. My concern is if this information is critical and it's important, what other avenues or what other sources or committees are available? Maybe not specifically to this specific situation, but isn't this study part of an overall study in terms of the government's responsiveness? I heard on several occasions that some of the witnesses had indicated that the readiness should be for future potential crises of this nature, and there were some comparisons that were made to the current conflict that we're seeing in the Ukraine. So there are other elements that the government should consider, or there are elements here in the information I believe that Mr. Ruff is seeking that should be considered for other potential situations, and that could be applied back to, for example, the situation in Ukraine. So if the information is effective and valuable and meaningful for the government to develop some plans and actions and some readiness programs, then there must be some other way that this information can come forward. That's my concern. Why would we restrict that information only to this committee?
Mr. Byron, we can't request documents on behalf of another committee, so we have to deal with it here and on this committee, because this committee was especially constituted for particular reason, and that's why we are here for. Even the other committees, if they want to order documents on behalf of our committee, they can't do it either. So I hope I clarify your question, and I'm going to go to Mr. Baker now. Mr. Baker, floor is yours.
Thanks, Chair, and I'm glad to hear that you're staying in my chair, in your chair rather. I'm going to have to stay in mine because I guess I asked some questions at the beginning of Mr. Ruff and I just haven't gotten an answer, right? And I think the questions I've asked are pretty fair questions. Like I respect Mr. Ruff very much, and we've had a chance to chat about over the course of our time on this committee together about some of his thoughts and ideas, and I respect his point of view and his experience and his service to Canada very much as part of the forces in Afghanistan. But I guess I need to understand better what's behind the motion. Like I said earlier, first off, what's behind the motion? What is, in other words, why is the information that would be provided in these reports relevant? What are these reports and the scope of these reports? I still don't understand what these reports include, don't include, and how would they be relevant to our study? So I'm still at a point where I haven't had the answers to those questions. I would really appreciate an explanation of those. I think Ms. DeMoff has presented a thoughtful amendment. I think it allows us to make sure that the committee delivers this report in time. I think there's a great risk that I don't even know what's in these reports. So I don't know how much information there is. I don't know how relevant it is, but one can imagine a scenario where there's a lot of information that this committee won't have time to review all that information, won't have time to ask witnesses about that information, and that puts us in a position where we can't meet our mandate as a committee, set down by the House to have the report completed by June 8th. So I guess I'm a little bit not having the answers to these questions. I'm concerned to begin with, but I'm really concerned, especially if we get a whole bunch of information that we then can't properly incorporate, or have to incorporate without proper background or context or witness testimony. So to me, all of that raises a lot of flags. So I think Ms. Damoff's proposal of or amendment rather makes a lot of sense to make sure that we can get the report done and move forward. I also wanted to sort of, Mr. Van Bynen had raised, I think, a really important question, which is, are there other sources for this information? And like I said earlier, since I don't really know what this information is, it's very difficult to answer that question. But when I say what this information is, I mean what this information is that are in these reports that supposedly exist. I guess, so in the absence of that information, in the absence of understanding what's in these reports, I dug through some of my some documents and some publicly available sources of information. So what I thought would be useful is that I share some of the information that maybe and maybe Mr. Ruff can comment on this, or he can choose not to. It's up to him. But in his motion, he's requested these after action review reports with respect to the evacuation of Kabul in August 2021. And so, Mr. Van Bynen was asking whether there might be sources of information that we could tap into that might allow us to answer some of the things or provide some of the information that would be in these reports. And so, I've looked through some public sources that might have some of the information that Mr. Ruff is looking for. And so I wanted to lay some of that out here, and then maybe when I'm done, Mr. Ruff can tell us whether this is some of what he was looking for. So, for example, if we look back to, I've found a sort of timeline of some of the key events leading up to August 2021. And so, for example, we know that on February 29th, 2020, the U.S. and the Taliban signed an agreement that sets the terms for a U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan by May 1st, 2021, but they don't release the information that set the conditions for the U.S. withdrawal. And, at the time of that agreement, the U.S. had about 13,000 troops in Afghanistan, and that's according to the Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Defense Inspector General. And the withdrawal of U.S. troops was contingent on the Taliban's action against al-Qaeda and other terrorists who could threaten us. This is President Trump speaking. Mr. President Trump said that in a speech at the Conservative Political Active Conference. And the pact included the release of 5,000 Taliban fighters who were held prisoners by the Afghan government, which was not, of course, a party to that agreement. So that's February 29th, 2020. On March 1st, 2020, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani objected to a provision in the agreement that would require his country to release 5,000 Taliban prisoners. And he said, freeing Taliban prisoners is not under the authority of America, but the authority of the Afghan government. And there has been no commitment for the release of 5,000 prisoners. That's on March 1st, 2020. March 4th, 2020, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, tells the Senate Armed Services Committee that the Taliban pledged in the classified documents not to attack U.S. troops and coalition forces or launch what he called high-profile attacks, including in Afghanistan's 34 provincial capitals. And then he goes on to say the Taliban have signed up to a whole series of conditions. All the members of the Congress have all the documents associated with this agreement. This is Milley says. And despite the agreement, the Taliban attack Afghan forces in Helmand province, and the U.S. responds with an airstrike. That's March 4th, 2020. On March 10th, 2020, under pressure from the U.S., President Ghani orders the release of 1,500 Taliban prisoners. And so this is just for context. Originally, the agreement between the U.S. and the Taliban was for 5,000. The government of Afghanistan released 1,500, but they're also releasing them at a rate of about 100 per day. On May 19th, 2020, in releasing its quarterly report on Afghanistan, the Department of Defense Inspector General's office says that the U.S. cut troop levels in Afghanistan by more than 4,000, even though the Taliban escalated violence further after signing the agreement. And then it goes on to say that U.S. officials stated the Taliban must reduce violence as a necessary condition for continued U.S. reduction in forces, and that remaining high levels of violence could jeopardize the U.S.-Taliban agreement. And so, a close quote. And according to the report, that's according to the report, which covered the activity from January 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2020. And then it goes on to say, even still, the United States began to reduce its forces in Afghanistan from roughly 13,000 to 8,600. So that was May 19th, 2020. On August 18th, 2020.
Chair, point of order.
The point of order, Mr. Raff, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like you to make a ruling on relevance. The motion that was on the table has nothing to do with historical facts. It's asking for submission of documentation of already testified documents and reports that have been done by the government in different departments, and then the amendment to the motion that is being debated right now is talking about removing a date about reporting it back to the House. So I'd appreciate it, Chair, if you could just keep any discussion or debate focused on what we're actually discussing, i.e. the motion, not historical information about this, about everything, because that isn't what the motion has anything to do with. Thanks.
Chair, on this point of order, Chair,
just hold on, just 1 second, please. First of all, I want to respond to Mr. Raff. Mr. Raff brought a point which is valid, that Mr. Baker, your discussion should be focused to the amendment that's brought by Ms. Damoff. So as long as your discussion that intervention is reference to because it's the amended motion as amended is on the floor for discussion. So please keep your comments related to that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, point of order, please.
Madam Kwan, on a point of order, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair. I just want to get some clarity here with respect to the amendment that's been put forward by Ms. Damoff, and perhaps the clerk can provide this information for all committee members' understanding. The motion calls for, or the amendment calls for the elimination of the June 8th date and the elimination of for the report to be included in our report coming from this committee. However, when Ms. Damoff made those comments, her perspective was that it is not to impede necessarily for that report, for the undertaking to be included in our report to the House, but rather to say that in the event that the documents do not make it in time, that is before the drafting of the report, it would not delay the work of this committee. That was my understanding of her intention with her amendment. So if, for example, the undertaking is put in, and because this committee ceases to exist on June 8th, and if the documents is referred to this committee then before June 8th, let's say June 7th, after June 6th, where we would have completed our draft report, would committee members still be able to receive these documents on June 7th? Could I get clarification on the understanding of this amendment and how it would work procedurally and practically for this committee, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Kwan, for your intervention. Madam Clerk, would you be able to respond? Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So special committees, of which we are one, cease to exist upon presentation of their report to the House. So the date that the motion creating the committee stipulates is 6 months after the agreement or the adoption of the motion creating this committee, which brings us to June the 8th. Should the committee adopt and present the report in the House before that date, that is when the committee will cease to exist. Should they present in the House on June the 8th, that is when the committee will cease to exist.
Can I follow up with a further question, Mr. Chair?
Yes. Madam Kwan, just please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So just then on that vein, with respect to undertakings made to department officials already, independent of this one, but perhaps if this one goes through, could be included in this one as well. Would officials be required to provide the undertakings that the committee has already requested before we complete our report? Because there's a whole bunch of undertakings to which we still have not yet received. The one that I was referring to earlier, which is pertinent to this report, would be the files that have been referred from GAC to IRCC and the files that's been referred from the Department of National Defense to IRCC. We still haven't actually received that information yet, and which I think is pertinent to this report. And so what will happen if the officials don't provide that information to this committee before we table our report? Are they obliged to do so? Could I get some understanding on that?
Thank you, Madam Kwan. Madam Kwan, I think Madam Kwan is talking about the information that he asked about a week ago. And Madam Clerk, do you have anything to add a reference to the comments made by Madam Kwan? No? Okay, thank you. Madam Kwan, as you know, that we have a hard deadline of June the 8th. If we receive those documents by then, well and good. And after that, we're not going to be in the committee anymore. And I hope it answers. So now the floor is back to Mr. Baker.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. One more question, just so that I understand entirely the process as well. So the officials are not required to provide those undertakings to this committee, even though it impedes our ability to complete our report. And so from that perspective, would that be a violation of our privilege for committee members then?
Madam Kwan, I will come back to you on your answers because the point of order, certainly we are going into discussion. I gave you the floor to ask as many as questions out of your turn. I see Mr. Bruno Desep is shaking his head as well because he is waiting for his turn to speak. And I will get back to you on this one ASAP, Madam Kwan. But let me go to Mr. Baker. Mr. Baker, please keep your discussion, focused on the amendment motion as amended.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. Floor is yours.
I will, Chair. And I think I did want to, before I continue with what I was saying, I did want to explain why I think it's relevant. I think Mr. Ruff moved a motion that requested certain documents or certain reports.
Point d'ordre, Monsieur le Président. Point d'ordre.
Order.
Mr. Bruno, if it's a point of order, I'll give you...
C'est parce que là, il y a eu un point d'ordre de Madame.
It's because there was a point of order from Ms. Kwan, and she had the opportunity to talk about it. I've been waiting for a long time. So do I need to go through a point of order to be given the floor? Is that how it works?
You know that I'm not one of those chairs that I try to be as fair because because we have only a few more meetings left on this committee, I just want to finish this committee in a way. I understand. You know that I understand. I already mentioned.
Non, mais vous comprenez que... OK, parfait. C'est bon, si vous comprenez, vous savez.
If you understand, that's okay. You know you are my favorite chair.
Mentioned to Madam Kwan that I see you were shaking your head and you are waiting for your turn. And I would love to give you your turn as long as Mr. Baker ceases to stop to speak, and he can raise his hand again. He can always come back, and it's up to Mr. Baker because floor is his, and I hope you understand. And Mr. Baker, I hope see how you want to proceed. Floor is yours. If you want to give it to Mr. Bruno Decep, it's up to you, and then you can always come back. Mr. Baker, floor is yours.
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, so in the spirit of collaboration, like I will, I do want to say something, and then I'll give my time, or I'll allow I'll stop speaking for the time being and allow Mr. Brunel Decep to jump in. And I think Mr. Brunel Decep knows, both because we served on the same committee over the past couple of years, but that I have a lot to say from time to time, and I have more to say on this topic. But I also, Mr. Brunel Decep knows from about 20 minutes ago that I'm happy to offer my time so that he has a chance to say something. Before I do that, though, I just wanted to take this opportunity to explain why I thought what I was saying was relevant, because Mr. Ruff raised a point of order, and I think it's just important that for the record and for my colleagues on the committee that they understand why I was speaking to what I was speaking about, because Mr. Ruff's motion requests certain reports. Ms. Damoff made an amendment suggesting that the deadline for that be amended or removed, and then Mr. Van Bynen suggested that perhaps the information that Mr. Ruff is seeking could be obtained from other sources. And so I was citing some information that is available in other sources as an example that could be used to be included provided to the analysts that could perhaps address what Mr. Ruff was inquiring about, and I was providing those as that information as example. So that's why I was speaking to that. So I will now turn. I'll stop speaking. I'll turn it over to Mr. Brunel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baker, for your understanding and cooperation. And I'm really, really very sorry, Mr. Brunel Decep. I didn't mean to ignore you and any other member, but floor is yours, and go ahead, please, now.
You know, Mr. Chair, you're very kind. We've been sitting on various committees for a while now. I think we know each other pretty well. Have you ever seen me filibuster? Have you ever seen me filibuster? It's special because... No, never. Exactly. It's special because the only parties that filibuster, at least from what I've seen in the past 2 years and a half, is either the Liberals or the Conservatives. Right now, we know how people are going to vote. We know. It's said already, but now we see people using chamber resources. That's taxpayers' money now. People who make sure that employees have to do extra time, supplementary time, because they don't want us to vote immediately, whereas we know how people are going to vote. So right now, there's filibustering. You will never see me filibustering, Mr. Chair, because I do respect the institutions. I respect House resources, House employees. I respect the taxpayers who pay our salaries and the salaries of all House employees and House resources. Right now, there's filibustering. What we're seeing is filibustering so that we do not vote. We all know how people are going to vote. So I'm asking for a vote. I'm asking that people respect taxpayers instead of wasting time, wasting money. I request that we go to a vote right away, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brunel Decep. No, I do commend your professionalism and your cooperation all the time. And you have never been an issue or any troublemaker on the committee, and I have a very high regards for you. And with this, I will go to Madam Damoff. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to speak to my amendment because I just want to make sure everyone is aware I do respect this institution. I do respect the taxpayers that send us here. And I also respect the integrity of this study and the testimony that we heard from dozens of witnesses, much of it heartfelt. And I think I'm not speaking out of turn saying that all of us were deeply disturbed and touched by the testimony that we heard. And I think we all want to get to a place where we have a report that will actually move us forward, that will have us make recommendations to the government on issues of humanitarian aid, on how we can do better when it comes to immigration. So I 100% want us to be able to present this report to Parliament, and we have to present a report to Parliament. I don't want this committee to be bound by other departments like the Privy Council Office, Global Affairs, and the Canadian Armed Forces, and any other government department who may not provide the reports that Mr. Ruff is seeking on the evacuation of in August of 2021, which was a horrific thing to watch. But I think we all agreed when we started this study that what we wanted to do was to honor the witnesses that we heard from and make recommendations so that this doesn't happen again. So the reason that I put forward the amendment was so that if we can get this information in time, all the better. But if we don't, we're not bound by this. We still can honor the testimony that we heard. We can honor the witnesses that we heard, and we can actually make a difference for those who are living in Afghanistan, for those who want to flee. I have a constituent whose brother is still in Afghanistan, and I speak to him on a regular basis, trying to get his brother out. His brother helped the Taliban. I mean, it's personal for me, but even the witnesses that we heard from today, LGBTQ people who are living there whose lives are in danger. I mean, we want to make sure that we're presenting the best report we can to Parliament. So I did put my amendment forward in a show of good faith that we could honor what Mr. Ruff wants to do while also honoring and respecting the integrity of our study and being able to present it on time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baker, and then Mr. Ruff. Mr. Baker, go ahead. Floor is yours, unless you want Mr. Ruff to go ahead before you.
Sure, I'm comfortable if Mr. Ruff wants to go ahead, and if I can go after him.
Thank you.
My hand raised.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ruff, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
No debate on the adjournment, so I would call a vote on the adjournment. Madam Clerk, could you please call the vote?
Yes, on Mr. Ruff's motion to adjourn, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Ms. DeMoff.
Yes.
Monsieur El Khoury.
Pour.
Mr. Van Bynen.
Yes.
Mr. Gahir.
Yes.
Mr. Chong.
Yes.
Dr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Halan.
Yes.
Mr. Ruff.
Yes.
Monsieur Brunet-Duceppe.
Oui.
Ms. Kwan.
Yes.
Yeas pour. 11. Nays contre. 0.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the members, and look at this. I'm already sweating here. So do appreciate everyone. And I also want to thank the analysts, clerk, particularly the interpreters with my heavy accent, and also the sports staff, for staying overtime to accommodate us. And do really appreciate from the bottom of my heart for all the great efforts that the sports staff, clerk, analysts, interpreters, translators have put it in. So very best, and enjoy the long weekend, and we'll come back after the next week.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank Alexei for his intervention, which brought an end to this situation. Thank you very much, Alexis.
Yeah, thank you. Meeting is already adjourned.
Thank you.